Hey, Honors Bulls! This week on the Honor Roll podcast, we'll be talking to 4 Judy Genshaft Honors College alumni who are getting ready to start their surgical residencies at Tampa General Hospital. Stay tuned to hear about how their time in Honors College shaped their journeys in medical school. Hey, Honors Bulls! Welcome to the Honor Roll podcast, the flagship podcast of the Judy Genshaft Honors College podcast network. I'm your host, Caroline Merriman, a fourth-year student studying English and biology at the University of South Florida and a member of the Honors College. So today we're switching it up a little. I have a special guest joining us for the first time today, Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and Honors Professor, Dr. Lindy Davidson.
Hey, Caroline.
Hey.
I'm so happy to be here. It's very exciting to get to be in the studio with you.
I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for joining me today. So you actually taught a few of the residents that we'll be talking to today, correct?
I did. I taught a class called Ethics at the End of Life, which 3 of them took, and then I taught a class and led a trip to the Dominican Republic, which 2 of them went on.
Well, I think it'll be really fun to have our little reunion on this episode with everybody.
I'm very excited about that.
So as always, we'd like to kick off the episode with one big question. So what do you think would be like the hardest job in the world?
Okay, well, I can tell you one experience I had with a really hard job was kindergarten teacher.
Oh, wow.
Right after I graduated from college, I was a substitute teacher. And one day I got put in a kindergarten classroom. And it was honestly one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. That was the longest day. I actually stayed later in the day to write a letter to the actual kindergarten teacher, thanking her for going into this profession because it's so important that we have great teachers, but I was clearly not cut out for the kindergarten world. And so that was a really hard one. But I would say another job that I do not want to do is surgeon. I would never want to be a surgeon.
That sounds like a lot of pressure.
It does. Yeah. I mean, to like cut into somebody else's body, like, no. No.
I have shaky hands.
Yeah.
I'd miss.
Yeah.
I'd cut something else on.
I think it's good to know your strengths.
Yeah.
And then to
play to those.
Yes, play to your strengths and know your weaknesses and do not choose that as your profession. But yeah.
Well, today we are going to be talking to 4 surgical residents.
Mad props to them.
Exactly. But we're going to get to hear all about how their time in the Honors College kind of has shaped their approach to residency or how they're feeling about it. So I think, it'll be really cool to not just hear about, why they love medicine, but also the journey to how they got there and how, people like yourself, played a really large role in where they are today.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing from them, catching up with them, and seeing how they're feeling about taking on this job that most people, quite honestly, can't and should not do. But, I mean, how thankful am I that we have people who are capable and willing to do this very difficult job?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, stay tuned because this is an episode that you guys will not want to miss. All that coming up next.
My name is Reginald Lucian. I'm the Assistant Dean for Student Success at the Judy Genshaft Honors College. My favorite honors experience or memory, I would say, is leading the study abroad program to Osnabrück, Germany. That is by far one of our best international experience programs in the college. We have phenomenal opportunities for students to learn about German history and culture, and it is by far one of my favorite experiences of leading a group of 20 students to Osnabrück and just watching them go through the experience of living in a space that they've been learning about for an entirety of a semester.
Hey everyone, today we're here with 4 honors alumni and soon-to-be surgical residents at Tampa General Hospital. Trent Lippert, Karina Bowers, Ife Bolujo, and Sabrina Awshah. They're here to share a bit about their journeys from undergraduate honor students to today. Would each of you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Ife Bolujo. I don't know what to really say about myself. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. I went to USF for undergrad, obviously, and I went to Indiana University for medical school.
All right. Hi, I'm Sabrina. I'm a Tampa native, and I went to USF for undergrad. for med school and now for residency. So you truly do stay forever.
I'm Trent Lippert. I was originally born in Orlando, Florida, but I went to USF for undergrad, also medical school, and now residency again. So I've been here for about 10 years.
I'm Karina Bowers. Like Sabrina, I'm a lifer. I was a Tampa native, USF undergrad, and med school.
And Dr. Davidson, could you just reintroduce yourself for everyone?
Sure. I'm Lindy Davidson. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs in the Judy Genshaft Honors College.
All right. And we're going to get into everything about like your time in med school and your residencies. But the first thing I wanted to ask you was, when did you first know you wanted to go into medicine?
So I was in high school, and honestly, we have this thing in like my high school, and I went to school in St. Johns County. They're called academies, and they're like little like career things that you kind of do the entire length of high school and then go into it with college. And I thought I wanted to be an architect. I love architecture, but this was like in like 2010 to 2012, and I remember like we went through like a recession, and I knew, just coming from like my background, I didn't want to have a job that was based off of the economy. So then I got bored, because also in my school district, seniors ended school maybe like 1 or 2 months before everyone else. So I had a little bit of time before like I left, and I was like, I binge watched House, and I was like, that's cool. We're gonna go with that. And and then I stuck with it, and here we are.
Has medicine lived up to your house expectations?
Absolutely not. Believe it or not, it's so much more businessy than you think, like the back end of it. It's not all like cool diagnoses, cut into people, call it a day. Like it's
like, do you have insurance?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough in these streets of America. So
Is that what you told med schools when you were interviewing, that you wanted to be like House?
No. Believe it or not, I do have some level of social awareness. So I definitely was like, okay, I got to craft like a decent answer to this question. And yeah, now we're here. So yeah.
So funnily enough, like Ife, I also thought I wanted to be an architect for a really long time. And I don't know how I switched out of that. I feel like for some people, I think people, when they think of like going to med school and thinking of becoming a doctor, it's like this kind of like big, revelation, or like this come to moment of like, oh wow, like I want to be a doctor now. But when I was in high school, so similar to like the whole recession thing, my mom went back to school and was working a job. My dad was working 2 jobs. And my grandparents were staying with us. My grandma was very ill. And so I had just gotten my license. I actually became the primary caretaker of my grandma. So I was taking her dialysis. I was taking her like all her cardiology appointments. I was seeing all these things. And so I got to interact with a lot of different physicians and just specialties way, I think, earlier, or like probably more than I ever thought I would. And I just thought like, wow, this is really cool, especially since a lot of her physicians were Arabic speaking. And so just seeing what they were able to do for my grandma, who did not speak like a lick of English, I think in like communicating with her directly and stuff, because like my medical Arabic was nothing. I thought that was like pretty neat. I think what you can do for other people in that regard. And so that's kind of how I became interested in medicine. And here I am.
Yeah, I think for me as well, it kind of started in that high school phase. My grandma was a nurse. My great-grandparents were the first administrators of what Florida Hospital and Advent Health ended up becoming, the Florida Sanitarium. So I've always kind of been in this healthcare adjacent field. My dad has a business that helps out with breast cancer imaging for mammography. So I've kind of always been adjacent to it and interested. And then, you go into high school, you want to be good at things. I was always wanted to be a high achiever and really pursue things that I could see myself excel at. And so I found myself to be really good at sciences and, kind of be that cookie cutter, like, oh, I think I want to go into medicine. Like, that is what I think I can excel in. And then my junior year of high school, my grandma was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so then she ended up passing away about a year and a half after. And so that was kind of like, wow, I really felt the personal effects. And then it was a big shock. We didn't expect her to pass when she did. And so kind of going through that, I was like, I want to be able to kind of affect people's lives in the way that I think that these physicians help my grandmother and kind of in my own personal life. And so I think that's really where I set out. And then, you just keep going until you stop, until you have to redirect course. And so I ended up here.
Yeah, I'd say for me, I went through a bit of an identity crisis in freshman year of college. I was very much like a competitive dancer. I loved ballet and contemporary, and that was like when I graduated high school, I said, okay, do I want to do this as a career or do I want to pursue an education? And I think, my parents always pushed me to go towards education, and I loved school. Like Trent, also a high achiever. I said, let me do both. And so that was part of the reason I chose like USF was that they have a dance program. And I was like, I'm going to double major and do all this stuff. And then I realized like as much as I love dance, I still taught and things. I liked the sciences a lot. And then I started volunteering down at All Children's, I guess before it became John Hopkins All Children's. And I was in their child life department with, I would just essentially go to the unit. I would play with kids that didn't have their parents around, hold some babies, if you will. And at the time, it was fun. It was very like rewarding at the end of the day. But I was like, I feel like I want to do more for them. I don't want to just play with them. I want to help them in their problems that they're having and understand like why are they on like EKG? What are we looking at? What are we doing here? So that was kind of my like inching towards medicine in that regard.
It's really cool that you all kind of had these experiences where you got to see like how a healthcare worker was like helping a family through something, and that medicine is more than just treating a patient. It's helping someone through a really hard time in their life. Dr. Davidson, can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up teaching like medical ethics class and like what brought you into that?
Well, that's kind of a long story. I'll try to give you the summary
little
version
synopsis
of it. I graduated from college with a degree in communication. And then I went to seminary and I got a master's of divinity. And I still have not taken a science course since the 90s. But when I had my first son the year after I graduated from seminary, I was introduced into the medical complex like headlong because I was in the hospital for 7 weeks before he was born, actually in Florida Hospital that Trent's family apparently helped set up. So I was in Florida Hospital with him for 7 weeks. He was born. He was in the NICU for 4.5 months. After that, he's had 20 surgeries. He's 22 now. So he's had 20 some odd surgeries, including a kidney transplant, all these other things. And so that medical experience for me personally led me into a knowledge of healthcare from a patient and caregiver perspective, family caregiver perspective, but I could see a lot of problems, but they weren't problems that I was going to resolve as a clinician because that really isn't my calling. However, a lot of the problems I saw were communication problems, and I wanted to address those communication problems. So when I kind of got my head back up out of the water after having 2 more kids. And then I went back and got a PhD in health communication because I felt like that was my opportunity to interact, to like kind of pull together both my personal experience and my degrees. And I really focused on the family experience, not just their clinical experience, but their spirituality, their community engagement. They're all the different things that make a person who is also experiencing a medical crisis. It was really important for me to try to help people understand that these two I saw patients and the professional caregivers really divided, and I wanted to find a way to bring them together. And I felt like communication was a way that could happen.
And bringing that into like an educational space where like future doctors and like people in healthcare get that experience and get exposure to like, okay, what is compassionate care, what is palliative care, and all those things.
Exactly. So that by coming into the Honors College and teaching all of these, soon-to-be physicians, that I was sort of like it's kind of like a troubleshooting, or not troubleshooting, but what's the word? Like getting ahead of the game. Like let me get to you before you become a doctor and help you to see these things, and hopefully it will stick so that when you are a doctor and you're looking at a patient lying in a bed, you will remember that this is a person who has a whole life full of experiences, and that their diagnosis is not the only thing that's going on with them.
That's amazing. So now that you guys had that experience in your honor college, and now that you guys are going to be going into your surgical residencies in the next 2 weeks?
Monday.
July
Monday.
1st, so 3 days.
That's really
It
soon.
is very real.
Could you all kind of explain to the listeners like what residency entails, and like specifically what each of you will kind of be doing at TGH?
So residency looks different depending on the specialty you're in. For us, we have chosen a general surgery residency, which is at least 5 years. Some people choose to do research years, and it can be up to 7. And essentially, as a resident, you function as a unit. There's a team that you work with. You start out as an intern. You're at the bottom of the totem pole, but you are a doctor, and you do place orders under your name. You write notes. You are, responsible for patient care, but you're supervised throughout that process. So you have senior residents, chief residents, and then an attending physician that works above you. And in surgery, it gets a little bit more complicated because you now have an attending surgeon who, is primarily responsible, and your senior and chief residents are getting an operating room. As an intern, depending on the service, depending on what program you're at, you may be able to get into the OR, but your primary responsibility as an intern is patient care and making sure that everybody is okay on the floor and that sort of thing. In some of the more like medical residencies, those are 3 years and then some, and their day-to-day life looks very different than a surgical resident.
So how long will each of your residencies be?
Yeah, we're all in the same program, so at least 5. So 2029 will be the earliest any of us get out of residency. And then after that, you can go on and do additional training if you want to subspecialize. And usually those are 1 to 2 years. So anywhere from 2029 to 2031, we will be seeing patients on our own.
Wow.
Which is
that'll be so cool.
It's far, but it seems far, but it's also seeing how quickly we've gone from the old Allen building to sitting here. Like for me, that's 6 years. Like because I took a year and a half off between undergrad and medical school, so it really does fly by, especially with how busy we're going to be. General surgery.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but from what I've heard from other people, it seems like those are the longest hours, the surgical specialties, and typically get work the quote unquote hardest. Residency is hard, period.
Yeah.
But kind of when you are so busy, you are in it and you just basically forget time.
Yeah.
So,
go into a flow state.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of us had to do like audition rotations to get ready to apply to general surgery. And I just remember the hours that we worked. It's to kind of get a taste of what intern year is going to be like. And I think to show programs that you are capable and you're kind of willing and you can rise to that challenge. When the time comes. And I just remember like the hours that we were all working, and I would like get home and I'm like, oh my God, like it's 7 p.m., it's 8 o'clock. And like, you don't even do a thing or two and it's like already time for bed. And, you just got to wake up and do it again the next day.
And you've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning.
And you've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So like they're very long days, but kind of like what Trent was saying, like you don't even realize the time will fly. And it's crazy to think that like less than a year ago, we were in this position, applying and stuff, and like, our interns were just starting. Some of our friends were just starting their intern year, and now they're finishing up their intern year. It's just like crazy to see how like, I don't know, it's like time went by so slow, but so fast at the same time. And going back to like the whole, residency can be like 5 years, 7 years. I think actually all 4 of us are, and this could change, but I think all 4 of us are actually planning on taking research years, which will be really neat because I think we'll all come back together and be chief residents together. So some people might come back at different times, and not everyone in the same class will go out for research. So I think it'll be really cool that we might all still be together and finishing together in 7 years. So
have your little community.
Yeah, a little group.
So what would be like your typical week in residency then? Like how many hours would that? Just curious.
Yeah, we could talk about the schedule. We just got our call schedule a couple days ago, and typically the intern is there first. We're responsible for making the list, making sure everybody, understanding how everybody did overnight, getting sign out from the night team. Rounds start at 6 o'clock. So it really depends on like how much time you need to prep everything is when your day starts. So typically I think like if rounds are at 6, typically 5 o'clock is when interns get to 5 a.m. help the hospital. And then you work until 6 p.m. is sign out to the night team. And then the night team takes your pager, does covers through the night, and then you talk to them the next day. So that's Monday through Friday. Tampa General has a specific night float system, or I guess USF in general, because we also rotate at the VA and Moffitt for some rotations. And our night float is it's really great because you don't have to, as you get some more senior, take a call from home as much. And you're not, working when you're working nights, it's clustered together. And so our night float works Sunday night through Friday night, which leaves Saturday night open. And so the rest of us kind of share the responsibility to take on, we do 24-hour shifts to start 6 a.m. Saturday morning till 6 a.m. plus Sunday morning. So Sabrina and I start on a 24 next weekend. So, send all the Celsius our way.
Yeah, I think so. The rule is 80 hours a week. So it used to be unregulated back the kind of previous generation before us. It was 80 hours. They would be working. They called them residents because they lived in the hospital. That's where the name comes from. So several years ago, I think in the late 90s, they put in a regulation that was 80 hours a week. Now, that's averaged over 4 weeks. So you can work 100 hours, and then kind of they try to work you back down.
Only 60 the next week.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a luxury.
Time to kick back and relax.
And so, exactly. And so that all includes work. You working on patient charts and then also working on, things at the hospital. But that doesn't include things like preparing for your cases the next day for us, for our surgical residents.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's all what they consider educational time and what you really have to do outside of your work of taking care of direct patients and kind of the learning aspect of your training.
So I have to say, this is why I wanted all of them to meet with us and do this podcast now, because we will never get the 4 of them in the room together undisturbed for an hour. Like at the end of the residency, then we'll have to check back in with you. But I don't think we're going to get you all together here again for a good long while. Yeah.
No, judging by the call schedule, definitely not.
Right. So I was trying to strike while I had the chance.
Hi, my name is Ethan Joseph. I'm a third-year biomedical sciences student at the Judy Genshaft Honors College. One thing I love about the honors community, we're all very respectful and we're open-minded and we're willing to learn from each other. We were in a class where we were very politically divided, but just being there, just talking it out, we realized we had more similarities than we had differences, and that was something really amazing.
How do you guys feel kind of going into almost of what the burden is of residency? How are you going to get through that? How do you push through that?
So, I mean, you guys just met me a month ago, maybe. And I at least my own personality, I'm a very laid back, go with the flow kind of person. Dr. Davidson knows this. So to me, I'm going to be honest, I don't feel scared or nervous because but then also I think my life experiences, you can't afford to do that, I guess. So I think I'm kind of hardwired. So I have hardcore immigrant Nigerian parents and they push you into the deep end. So I think I'm just so used to that. So I'm kind of just you have to do it. It's going to get done. So you just got to go. So I just take it day by day. My personal, I set up personal goals for myself, and I have 2 for the first day, which is don't cry and don't kill anyone. And I feel
good goals.
That, I feel that's attainable goals. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of getting prepared and getting ready, I think a lot of pre-graduated medical students, no matter what specialty they go into, might do pre-studying. But I also really value my free time.
Yes.
And I know that this upcoming weekend is the last weekend of my life. So I'm not going to
live it up.
Yeah, I'm going to lay in bed because that's my favorite thing to do, and look at pictures of my dog. That's all I like doing. So I'm gonna do that. So yeah, that's just me though. So.
That is so not true. That's not all you like doing.
For the most part, I'll go to the gym. I'll clean some weight, jerk some weight, snatch some weight, feel good about it, and then go home.
I'll add in here. It must be nice not to have any fear because I am a mixed bag of emotions when it comes to this stuff. I think obviously this is the first time that we have 2 little letters behind our name that hold weight and responsibility. And I think going into intern year, we've met a lot of the residents, like going to med school, we worked with a lot of them. And the overwhelming message is like, you're not alone through all of this. Like you have a safety net and a whole team that's working behind you that wants you to succeed. And when you don't know what to do, just ask. It's, and so it's one of those things that, you know the right people to call, and you can rely on co-interns who may know more than you and can teach you a thing or two, or just, if you need to call them up and vent about a terrible situation you had, and having that like safety net support behind you, I think is how I'm planning to hopefully get through residency. But and I think like recognizing that, like, I mean, I don't think I'm as laid back as Ife for sure, but I think having like, I'm okay with my nerves. I think like it's going to push me like forward because that's how I function. So I have a mix of like fear and excitement in terms of this, but behind it all, I think it'll work out okay, hopefully.
Yeah, I would say I'm kind of like in the same bag as Karina. And I think as like the days kind of start to count down, I can like feel just like my heart rate is like persistently a little bit higher for just a little bit longer, which is okay. It's good. But I think it's comforting, I think, to know that you have like this whole team behind you. And it's reassuring in some senses. But at the same time, I think just going through med school and like this entire process, you set really high expectations for yourself. And I think it's understanding and learning to be okay with maybe adjusting those expectations a little bit, especially in this first week. You're not like, we don't even have Epic access until Monday morning. So like we can't really even get ourselves situated ahead of time, which is, we love to be in control and we love to anticipate and plan for these things. And so it's just like learning to, I think, adjust those expectations and be okay with maybe, my best now looks a little bit different from maybe what I thought my best would be. And that's okay while I got like situated and adjusted to this whole thing. And, it's okay to ask for help and stuff, which is something I think we all struggle with. I know I personally struggle with that a lot. So I think those are kind of like my biggest things. But, talking to some of like the people I'm going to be working with on the service that I start on Monday, I'm like very grateful to have them around. Like one of the second-year residents who's going to be on, she's like, oh my God, don't even worry about it. Like Monday, I will be like right by you. Like we're going to do everything together. And I'm just like, no, but I feel bad. Like it's my job as the intern to do that stuff. And you shouldn't be an intern for much longer. You're a second year now. And she's like, no, like it's your first day. We're here to help, So it's just like being okay with, I think, those things. And then I think kind of again on the same note of like, time flies, and before we know it, we'll be 2 months in and we'll be really comfortable with where we're at, or like starting to get comfortable with how things move along. So I'm excited and really nervous. I think
to both of Sabrina and Karina point, I think that this is something that coming from USF that we are so grateful and thankful for the opportunity to stay here.
100%.
However, that also like we have this thing as like, oh, well, we actually like kind of have a leg up on everybody else who's like, because for the residents from our categorical, like Ife, she's coming from outside. So we feel like kind of we need to try to like lead as well. And then that our like second years and seniors shouldn't have to worry about us as much because we feel like, oh, we're kind of in the system. But it's hard to kind of dissociate and be like, well, actually, we still don't know anything. We think we know. And trying to, go back to what Sabrina was saying and kind of lower those expectations and be like, no, we're all kind of starting out on the same foot. And it's great that we know how to work the EMR and we know the way around our hospital, which is a huge like benefit for people who stay at a certain place. But everybody's going to figure it out that by like the second day, we don't have much of a leg up. And so I think trying to like get separated from having those really high expectations and that pressure on yourself to kind of not be not a problem child, but just like not need to be tended to because you think that you already are in the culture and kind of know your way around and how to do things, which may be kind of true, but at the same time, you're going to be a doctor for the first day on July 1st. So kind of letting that sit with everybody is kind of I just said it, I kind of got goosebumps.
I think my hair skipped a beat.
It's so true that, you're a doctor today, but you'll be a practicing doctor on Monday. And I think too, one of the videos that I've shown in my end of life class a few times is a doctor is a TED Talk, and the doctor is talking about the expectation of perfection and how hard and toxic that is when doctors expect themselves to be perfect. That is really dangerous because that's not attainable goal. And so I'm really encouraged to hear you all saying we're gonna ask for help when we need help, because it's dangerous for the patients if you don't ask for help when you need help. And so I'm really like, that warms my heart.
I feel like honestly I don't know about y'all, but like I feel like that's something I learned in med school though. More recently in my 4th year, like being comfortable with non-perfection, because like obviously we were all in the honors college and like I played sports, so like competitive, like you gotta win, and if you don't win then you're the first loser. And I think my 4th year of med school is because my sub-I was my first 4th year elective. My first week was terrible. I remember I dropped both AdSens in a span of 5 minutes on the floor when we were closing, because like I dropped mine and then my resident was nice and then gave me hers, and then I dropped that one too.
A what?
Oh, they're like little. They look like tweezers.
Okay,
just to fix, like to pick up the skin to close. And I beat myself up about it for like days, because I was like, I'm such a loser. How could I, as a 4th year, drop both of the AdSens? Like, wow. And she had to close the skin without AdSens. Like, wow. And like, honestly, it took me like probably that entire year to just be comfortable with being like, I'm just learning. I'm starting here just like everybody else. And like, one thing I will say about my interview at USF, and these are things that I looked at when I was interviewing at other places as well, is how residents interact with each other and how they cover another, if that makes sense. Like, because like Karina said, like when we start, we're not going to be like, we know everything. That's how people get killed. So being able to like be like, I don't know how to do this. Like, can you help me? And I feel like USF's general surgery program, like at least from the feel that I got, is that like your seniors, not only the seniors, like the junior residents, like they'll always be there to like not hold your hand, but like catch you when you fall and like support you. And at least for me, like, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not going to be applying to residency for a very long time, but that's something that you should look out for when you're applying to residency. Like, look for a program, because you're going to be there for a while, and you need people that are going to support you in what you want to do when you fail, who's going to be there, people who are not going to leave you when you fail.
I think the best thing you can do for yourself is like remember that you're human and that you're learning and you're going to make mistakes, because you have to have room for grace for yourself as well as other people, and you're not alone, you've got people around you to help support you, guide you.
I agree. I feel like we're starting to be good friends. Well, you guys know each other, but like, like I feel like we get on pretty well.
I will say, I think it's like really great. I've noticed our class has so far like gotten along really well, and so I think it's going to be a really good 5 years. We're all good, like fun little groups.
5 plus.
5 plus. Sorry, yes, you're right. 5 plus years.
Together forever.
Besties for the resties.
So, kind of to close off this like residency section of the segment, what are you guys most looking forward to? Because I know we've talked a lot about like it's going to be hard, but like what are you excited about the most?
I think for me, it's so in medical school, especially in your 3rd year, or kind of coming out of your preclinical phase and going into your clinical rotations, you rotate through a lot of other specialties, and you spend a really long time doing that. When you get to your 4th year, you're starting to now think about the specialty that you want to apply to, and so you get to rotate, and focus your rotations kind of within that specialty. And I just think it's so nice to finally be able to like really just delve deep and learn more about the thing that I've known that I've wanted to do, without having to worry about, pediatrics or, OB-GYN. I mean, sure, we're going to do ped surgery, but like, you know what I mean? Just like, it's all from a surgical standpoint rather than, other specialties. And so I'm really excited, I think, to just like learn and be able to do that. And yeah, I guess that's the thought.
Sorry, I think like building on that, it's like you're able to dive into what you're truly passionate about. It's like we go during your 3rd year, every school's a little different, but here at USF, you go through your 3rd year, you go 8-week segments pretty much through every kind of major specialty. And then you have to study for this big test at the end. And that grade that you get on that test, that's what goes on your kind of report card that goes out to the programs that kind of like, oh, like, is this person smart? Are they competitive? All these kinds of things that people try to gauge what you are on a piece of paper before they just decide to interview you for residency. So it's a lot of stress for those types of tests where you're trying to learn as much as you can about all these specialties.
Oh, goodness.
And depending on like where you kind of figure out what you want to do along the way, like I started with my surgery rotation because I was on the fence about it. I truly was like, I have worked with people who are extremely intense, and I was like, I don't know if that's the culture or how I want to be around. But then I went on my rotation, and I got a completely different kind of sense and a vibe from the people I was around. And that's also why I knew USF would be a great fit for me, because I had said this in my interviews, but I found my people. And I think that's, you kind of go through your rotation. You say, I can work with these people for the rest of your life. Some program directors, they kind of say, like, when they interview people, can I be stuck in an elevator with you at 3 o'clock in the morning and not want to rip your head off? Because you're going to be calling them in the middle of the night, trying to help patients who are really sick, and the attending's going to be at home, and you're going to have to be able to be good to work with, and then also be able to function and for them to trust you to do things. Otherwise, there's no point in you being there because you're not learning along the way. But all that is saying is, like, I'm really excited to see the growth, because I think going from the first 2 years, your head's in a book in medical school. You feel like you get to third year and I was like, I learned all this stuff, but I don't know how to apply it. Then you go to your third year and it's like, wow, I really learned a lot. Then you take your second board exam and you're like, wow, I'm kind of seeing everything come together. Fourth year, it's kind of like the rise and fall. You kind of had this, when you're in undergrad, you're like, oh my goodness, I like took the MCAT. I'm like so smart. I go to medical school and you get knocked down again. And then you go up again and you get to fourth year medical school and you're like, oh my goodness, like I've gone so far. Like I feel like I can conquer the world. And then you go to intern year and you're all the way down again, because now you're actually doing the work. And so kind of going that year to year growth is exponential. Like we are going to start out and I don't know how to put an order in for Tylenol. But do you know what I'm going to learn out the first day? I'm going to learn how to put an order for Tylenol in. And that's just going to continue to build, and kind of looking at our friends who are first-year residents here and all the different specialties. It's so amazing to see how they can, go from, I see a consult for a patient with a senior your first week together, because you have to go together. It's most efficient to where they say they're busy. And towards the end of the year, hey, go triage this consult, talk to them, come back, make a plan, and then you tell them the plan. There's like, okay, you call the attending, you talk to them. So I'm really excited to see that growth. I know it will come. It's going to be very painful and a lot of sleepless nights, but that's why I'm really excited.
Yeah, I agree. I think like Trent described, there's this transition period between second and third year where first and second year, honestly, you still feel like a college student all over again, because you're going to lecture every day or you're watching lectures every day. And like you get these little hands-on sessions, but it still feels disconnected from like the healthcare world or realm, if you will. And third year is when you actually jump in and you're like in the hospital doing things. And I remember like all of that experience, I was so excited. I'm like, I finally understand why we learned all these things. Like why was this important? And then, but you still preface it with, but I'm still a student, but I don't have this responsibility yet, but I still have to go home and study. I still have this backup plan. And so now there's this transition, like they always like to say in medicine, you have to be a lifelong learner, right? You can't just learn things now and expect to never have to open a book or study again, of course, but transitioning out of that student role and more taking on a little bit more responsibility within reason, I think is what I'm most excited for.
Well, I think you all are going to do an amazing job in your residency.
Thanks. I don't know about y'all, but I am most excited about the Patagucci's with our name on it.
I am like actually so looking forward to it. My med school Patagonia is so beat up, and I'm like, do I buy a jacket now and buy another Patagonia, or do I just ride it out? I'm so excited for.
I didn't buy one because of that, but like. Also, just for the people who don't know me, that was a joke. I am excited about that, but I agree with Trent. Like I and sincerely like excited about like this is a new stage of our life. I love making friends and experiences in new stages, but no, the Patagonias are cool.
But also like that's all great in terms of like our learning education. I think we're almost excited about our first paycheck.
Right, you're finally getting paid for something.
It's like I've invested $250,000 in my education.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of money.
Wow.
Yeah, it says it's real money. I'm not convinced sometimes, but and so I worked before med school, so I like got used to, I made money for 2 years before med school, and then you go back to med school and you're like, oh shoot. Med school is weird because you get, just like loans in undergrad, you get all your money at once and you have to budget it off of that. And then, you go, now you're working again and you have to completely flip your budget around. And also we've gone from, technically your disbursement is only supposed to last you until May. So everybody has to figure out, we were lucky we didn't have to move, the three of us, but Ife had to move across the country find a way to finance and make it work, and which she obviously did. But I think she's going to be super excited.
I mean, we don't have a choice. We got to show up. But no, honestly, I've always worked like my entire life. Obviously my parents are first gen, so they've always taught me like the importance of hard work, and like I wasn't handed anything is what I'm trying to say. So I worked in between med school, and I had my real big girl job, and I had to pay my real big girl bills. And even like I just graduated like the beginning of May. I've had a job since like maybe my last class, which was like in April. I just quit like a week ago. And
you started working as soon as you got out of med school?
Oh yeah, girl, I'm poor. Yeah, I'm broke. I'm big broke. So I mean, you have to make things happen.
Yeah, you have to.
Like you have to make things happen. I'm 28 years old. Like I'm not a child. I'm an adult, and if you as an adult, you need to pay your bills. I personally like a nice credit score. I mean, I don't know about other people, but like I'm gonna pay my bills. So yeah, but I mean, it was like a work from home. So I woke up, logged in, and went back to sleep. So
So were you working?
I got paid to do it. But no, it was cool. But yeah, it'd be nice to have money that doesn't run out.
Yeah.
That lasts for 2 weeks. That'd be great. So I'm also excited about that.
Living off loans sounds stressful too. Like you're having to budget all your semesters based off of your disbursement.
Especially when like one of your hobbies is shopping. Like how can you say no?
What are you supposed to do?
Exactly. Like those shoes are just staring me in the face. I've had to force myself to not go to I haven't been in the mall since I've been in Tampa because I'm like, I don't think I can just buy things. Like I shouldn't. I absolutely should not. So yeah.
Well, Ife, thank you for that insight, and I don't want to cut it short. So we're going to stop there and turn this into a 2-part episode where we're going to talk all about your honors memories, maintaining balance, and future pursuits. Make sure you tune in to part 2 so you can learn how they got here on the next episode of the Honor Roll Podcast. The Honor Roll Podcast is recorded in the Judy Genshaft Honors College at the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Production assistance is provided by honors student Sandra Napolitano and Professor Adam Davidson. Thank you all so much for listening. Please do not forget to rate and review our podcast. We appreciate your feedback. Stay tuned for part 2 with Ife, Trent, Karina, Sabrina, and Dr. Lindy Davidson as we continue to explore the honors journey through med school. Until next time, go Bulls.